Hello lovely people and welcome to today's video. I have got a heap of books. Let me show you. Here they are. So you know what that means. Let's do a haul. This is kind of like a random bag of bits and bobs, not necessarily in any order, so I'm just going to grab and go and talk a little bit. The first two that I know are on the top are the second and third in a series, so I don't really want to spoil myself for it. It's one that I've been wanting to check out for a while, but yet to do so. Here we are. So this is part of the Gods of Blood and Powder series by Brian McLennan, and the second book that I have to hand here is Wrath of Empire, and the third is Blood of Empire, and I think it is like an epic fantasy series. I've heard some good things about it on the grapevine, but have never myself tried anything from this author. It's something that I've seen on the shelves and have wanted to kind of give a go at some point. So yeah, now I've got my own copies to do so with. Another fantasy I have here is The Seared Land by Deborah A. Wolfe, and this looks like it's part of the Dragon's Legacy series. Now I'm not sure where this comes in terms of number order. It's another kind of epic fantasy centering on dragons. I'm reading a dragon fantasy at the minute, and it's reminding me how much I love that sort of thread of fantasy, high fantasy, anything with dragons. I remember now that I love a lot, coming from Titan Books, which I think do quite a lot of amazing stories, fantasy, that sort of thing. So looking forward to this one as well. This one I remember being on the Booker Prize, and yeah, looking at it, it would have been 6 years ago, which is crazy, but this is Diane Cook's The New Wilderness, and I remember when this was doing the rounds and people were saying how interesting and strange and beautiful it was. So I have been wanting to read this at some point in my life. Never got around to picking up a copy before, I do believe, until now, so I'm excited to have my own copy here. So from what I understand, it's kind of a little bit dystopian in vibe. It seems like there's this massive smog-filled metropolis, which is pretty much what we're living in now, and B, her daughter is really suffering, struggling, and slowly wasting away. The only way to really try and save her or give any improvement into her quality of life is to move in what's called the wilderness state, which no one has ventured to before. They've not been allowed, but she's going to have to kind of force that lifestyle upon them for the hopeful betterment of her child. And I think she starts to notice like different odd things becoming of her child. I don't know if she's gonna slip into this like wild feral state. That's the kind of vibe I'm getting. But yeah, it's like a story of, you know, a mother's love and what she would do for her child. So I'm intrigued to get to this because it sounds a little bit weird as well, and I love weird fiction. I have a stack of non-fiction here. So the first one I'll show you is one that I'm pretty sure I've actually read before, but I think I did it through audiobook, so it's nice to have my own copy. But this is Yomi Adegoke and Elizabeth Vivian, and this is Slay in Your Lane, A Black Girl's Bible. It goes into stories and accounts of Black women who have, you know, strode to achieve success in their life in every avenue really, and ways to implement that for yourself. To feel good piece of non-fiction, and yeah, I'm glad to have a copy for myself. Also pertaining to race and heritage and things of that nature, I've got Anti-Racist Ally, An Introduction to Action and Activism by Sophie Williams, which, you know, says it on the tin, pretty much what you're going to get. It says, become an anti-racist ally. I'm not racist is a good place to start, but it's the bare minimum. It's not allyship. To be an effective anti-racist ally, you need to be an actively anti-racist. We need you to be an ally. We need you to be part of the change. So yeah, a lot of these books were coming up around the Black Lives Matter, so it's good to have more of these for reading. I've got White Fragility by Robin DiAngelo, and I remember this got quite a lot of backlash and controversy because I think it was bringing up points that might not have been the way to talk about things. I can't remember. I don't want to put words in other people's mouths, but yeah, I remember this having a little bit of discourse. Yeah, it says again on the tin, why it's so hard for white people to talk about racism. So I'll be intrigued to see what this perspective is all about. I stumbled on a book live for this independent author called P.M. Morgan, who was talking about his book, and that is Black Shuck 1577. So I decided to purchase a copy. This is a historical fiction with like fantasy folklore elements, talking about the British folklore of the Black Shuck. And I believe it's an anticipated trilogy. Each trilogy, or each book in the trilogy rather, will follow a different legend within British folklore, so I'm really looking forward to giving this one a go. I also have 100 Great Black Britons by Patrick Vernon and Angela Osborne. Honestly, the title says it all. I was particularly excited that it was forwarded by David Olusoga, who is such a fantastic historian. Recently seen him on The Traitors and really enjoyed that. Keep meaning to pick up his work. Then we have Gavin Francis's Island Dreams, Mapping and Obsession, which is something I hadn't heard about before but was kind of in love by the cover, and it's about the author kind of exploring this obsession, this fascination with the isolation of islands and the philosophy behind it, and yeah, kind of going into depth about islands. It sounds like something that someone would write a dissertation on, and I'm here to get absorbed into all his meandering details. I just want to get lost in a little bit of non-fiction. Next, for the non-fiction, I have this by Oliver Bulk, and it's Under the Tump, Sketches of Real Life on the Welsh Borders. Bit random, I know, but I like nature writing and things of that nature, so I'm looking forward to picking this up. I also have fond memories of reading nature writing when I was abroad in Spain many moons ago, and it just makes me think of holidays. So hopefully if I ever go on a holiday again, I can pick this up and just enjoy it. But it is a captivating personal picture of country life in the 21st century, set in Hay on the Wye. Then there is The Map and the Clock by Gillian Clarke and Carol Ann Duffy, which is a big one. It's really sturdy. This one I don't know an awful lot about, but it says The Map and the Clock is a celebration of the most scintillating poems ever composed on our islands. It's curated by poet laureate Carol Ann Duffy and by Gillian Clarke, National Poet of Wales, or another Welsh book. This anthology gathers 14 centuries of extraordinary verse, beginning with the first writings from the old languages of England and Ireland, Scotland and Wales, and culminating in some of our most recent poets speaking in our present day tongues. Many of our founding myths, this is the bit that got me intrigued, more so shall I say, and legends are told here, as are the nursery tales and songs we still sing today. Through these pages we witness the tragedy of European wars and world conflict, we court romance and friendship, we explore nationhood and belonging, identity and belief, and we are welcomed to a celebration of the cultural diversity of the poetries of our 21st century. The Map and the Clock is a stunning and essential treasury of poems that have shaped our islands through time. I think I'm going to enjoy this. I do like a bit of poetry, but it's not much that I pick one up and dive into. Shall we read one of these together? Shall we do that? First reading, so it's gonna be a fumbly one. This is by John Keats, A Song About Myself. There was a naughty boy was he. He would not stop at home, he could not quite be. He took in his knapsack a book full of vows, and a shirt with some towels, a slack cap for a nightcap, a hairbrush, comb ditto, new stockings for old ones, would split then this knapsack tight at his back. He riveted close and followed his nose to the north, and followed his nose to the north. I've read that really strangely. Shall we find another one? This one is called Seed by Paula Meehan. The first warm day of spring, and I step out into the garden from the gloom of a house where hope had died, to tally the storm damage, to seek what may have survived, and finding some forgotten lupins I'd sown from seed last autumn, holding in their fingers a raindrop each like a peace offering or a promise. I'm suddenly grateful and would offer a prayer if I believed in God, but not believing, I bless the power of seed, its casual, useful persistence, and bless the power of sun, its conspiracy with the underground, and thank my stars, the winter's ended. True. I also have How to Argue with a Racist by Adam Rutherford, and again this was a suggested read mainly during the height of the Black Lives Matter movement, so I've got a couple of books in terms of sociology, Black history, that sort of thing, that I am happy to finally add to my collection. Another of those being How to Be an Anti-Racist by Ibrahim X. Kendi, which I'm almost certain I already have a copy of, but maybe I could gift this one. And then I have some more light-hearted non-fiction, How to Be Vegan in 28 Days. I'm not necessarily vegan at all, but I do like to try and be meat-free every now and then. And I thought, you know, I'm cooking more. Let's see what options there are for less meat in my diet. There's also A is Amazing, and this is a collection of poems about feelings. It's a children's non-fiction. And also Craft Your Own Happy, which is another non-fiction, which collects 25 creative projects to craft your way to mindfulness. So it's got a lot of mixed media in here. It's not a particular craft, like it's not just crochet, that sort of thing. There's lots of different things in here. I've also got here, I think this is the last of the non-fiction, Back in the Frame by Jules Walker, aka Lady Velo. This is cycling, belonging and finding joy on a bike. It's about this lady who at the age of 28 decided to get back on her bike and discover roots and enjoy just the feel of a girl on a bike riding around town and, you know, country paths and just exploring nature and being outside and the sheer simplicity of it and getting around. It also talks about how difficult it is to find space within that industry, especially as a woman and a woman of colour, and also how her struggles with depression, and she had a mini stroke as well, has affected kind of her life and the decision to get back on her bike and move her body in that way. So I think this is going to be pretty inspiring. I just love the bright colours of it as well already. That's making me feel happy. So this is one that I'm looking forward to picking up on like a rainy day or something. Okay, back to the fiction. I have 2 horrors and a classical. The classical in particular I have been wanting to read for quite some while actually, and it's The Ninth Child by Sally Magnuson. This is how it looks, nice and purple. So this is set in 1856 and we're surrounded by wilderness, kind of like the is it just called The Wilderness? I can't remember the title of the book now, the other one. And it's quickly kind of being industrialized and overtaken by, you know, smog, gunpowder, everything. And our main character is just overcome with grief for the many unborn children that she has had to bear and lost. She's quickening with life again, and she's finding solace within these woodlands, this wilderness. But as well as the gunpowder smoke and all the industrialization taking place, another darker presence has also emerged and he is waiting for her. So I'm intrigued to see what kind of angle this will take, if it will be more supernatural, if it's someone from her past, if she's got secrets or something like that. I'd be intrigued to find out. Next 2 are horrors. The first of those being The Wise Friend by Ramsey Campbell. This is one I actually don't know anything about, so let's find that out together. It's the winner of a few awards actually, one of them being the Lifetime World Fantasy Award and also the Bram Stoker Award, so very prestigious things. So this is about Patrick's aunt Thelma, who was an artist whose work turned towards the occult. While staying with her in his teens, he found evidence that she used to visit magical locations to collect artifacts, and even the woods behind her house seemed to be the lair of an uncanny presence. But after her mysterious death, the articles she collected were nowhere to be found. Now an adult, Patrick has discovered her journals. Together with his teenage son Roy, he visits the sites Thelma described. Each place he visits only brings further terrors. His experiences scare Patrick away from the sites, but Roy carries on the search without him. Can Patrick convince his son that his terrible suspicions are real, or is it already too late to stop what they've helped to rouse? That sounds really fun. I hope I enjoy this, you know. It's a shorter horror as well, so hopefully it's one that I can really sink my teeth into. It's even got a little review by Guillermo del Toro, who I love, that says an absolute master of modern horror. So yeah, I'm quite intrigued by this. I've also got Anita Frank, and I've been wanting to read this book in particular, The Lost Ones. It's another historical kind of horror. It's set in 1917 England. So our main character is I guess a widow. I don't know if it counts as a widow or if there's another term if you are fiancé but not married yet, but she is reeling from the grief of that and decides to go and stay with her sister for a time just while she kind of recuperates and finds her strength again. However, the house that she moves into seems to be its own entity. I love a haunted house story. I love a ghost story, and especially in books that really have the house take itself on as a character in its own right. And I think that this story could do that. So she starts to hear sobbing and strange noises within the house, which inspires her to then research the tragic and sad stories that kind of became the house. The house's history, basically. And yeah, it sounds really interesting. I think there might be conversations of a new romance. I don't think it's romance focused though, but there's like a veteran in here that aids her, and I'm assuming there's going to be like a friendship or something that blossoms from that. But I'm hopeful it's mainly like a strong female main character kind of finding her way, being all spooky and living her life, you know. Now this is one that I recognize the cover for, but it isn't one that I would say that I know the story for. It's a crime book, but it is kind of like historical setting. I do like my historical crime, historical horror, anything that's set in like a gothic kind of setting. This is Requiem for a Knave by Laura Carlin, and this is set in, does it actually say when it's set? I don't know that it actually says. But anyway, after the death of his mother, young Alwyn of Whittaker leaves the only home he's ever known to seek answers about his unknown father through a pilgrimage to the shrine of Our Lady of Wallisham. On the journey, Alwyn falls in with a band of violent and marauding soldiers and is witness to their terrible crimes. When Alwyn later joins up with a group of pilgrims, he must hide his identity, but he is not the only one with secrets to keep. Rosamond, a young woman travelling the same path, has much to conceal too. The journey to discovering who he really is will lead Alwyn into great danger and great passion. These are dark times, and through them Alwyn must shine a light. Will the revelations to come destroy everything that came before? I think it's going to have a nice gothic air to it, so hopefully I do get on well with this one. And the rest are covers of books that I recognise and had some vague interest in at one point or another, and I thought, well, the opportunity is here. They are free, let me get them. This one in particular, The Last Man in Europe, I almost borrowed a couple of years ago and then put it down because I had too many books out at once. But this is by Dennis Glover, and I've now got the opportunity to own it, which is fantastic. This is another historical fiction. It's set in 1947. It's about George Orwell. I don't know if it's like completely, well, it's not autobiographical because it's fictional, but it's inspired by his life as he's about to be in the throes of writing 1984. And I think it's supposed to give you kind of a new view on the author, especially considering that 1984 was his last work, I do believe, and this was kind of written in a race to finish it before he passed away. And the author, or what the author's trying to do, is to make you think of 1984 differently, you know, see the struggles and the hardships that Orwell had gone through in the process of creating it, and I think also giving it like a deeper context and depth to an already contextually deep story, right? So yeah, I am looking forward to this. 1984 is a book that I thoroughly enjoyed and recommend, so it'll be cool to see kind of like the background of the author here. I have read Down and Out in Paris and London, which was about his life, or his early life rather, so it'd be interesting to kind of have that in my head to compare and contrast to how his later years were. This is another random one. Again, the rest of these are books that I recognize in some way or form. I think this is just from the shelves really, but this is The Death of Jesus by J.M. Coetzee. I'm not too sure how to pronounce that, but it's a very thin book, first of all, and it's one that the title just strikes me as intriguing. Simon and David, a tall 10-year-old, are in a new land together with a woman named Inez. The small family have found a home in which David can thrive, but David is spotted by Giulio Fabricante, the director of a local orphanage, playing football with his friends. He shows unusual talent. When David announces that he wants to live with Giulio and the children in his care, Simon and Inez are stunned. David is leaving them, and they can only love him and bear witness. The Death of Jesus is the completion of an incomparable trilogy in which J.M. Coetzee explores the meaning of a world empty of memory but brimming with questions. Didn't know it was the last in the book, so I don't know if that spoiled anything for either of us, but it seems like it's people-based, character-based, and if it's got a strong enough story to carry it, I'll probably love that because I love character-driven story. Okay, The Farm by Joanne Ramos. I think this came out a couple of years ago, but it discusses race, money, motherhood, and the question of what would you sacrifice for a new life. A middle grade book here. I've been wanting to read a Patience Agbabi book for a long time, actually. I feel like I see her books all over the place. This is The Time Thief. So on a class trip to the Museum of the Past, Present and Future, the disaster strikes where the timepiece that, what is it called? The Infinity Glass, this thing here, is stolen. And unfortunately, her friend is arrested for the theft, right? So she ends up going into the past. Don't know how she does it without this, but anyway, she ends up going into the past, or her and her friends, into like an older London, and she meets new friends, goes on more adventures, and the whole idea is to try and get proof that her friend didn't steal this thing and get them unarrested. So yeah, it sounds like a fun little adventure, very short. I think I'm gonna like just eat this up. It looks like it might be part of another series, The Infinite, but they seem to be like their own like standalone stories, if that makes sense. And the last book I have is Cherry by Nico Walker, and I didn't realise before. Oh, that's trippy. Looking at it, I can't see a skull. Looking at it here, do you see that? I see a skull. That is so cool. What a cool illusion. I have never noticed that before, and I've seen this on the shelf like a lot of times. That is weird. That shows up really well here, but my eyes just couldn't detect that. Anyway, this is set in 2003, Cleveland, Ohio. Our main character, who I think goes unnamed, is a freshman at college and meets Emily, and they fall in love fast and hard. But during this time, a lot of options are running out. With the war in Iraq beginning, ends up becoming an army medic. Obviously, understanding from that, he comes away with severe amount of PTSD. The drugs that he's used to on the street have changed, and he and Emily have become hooked to heroin. Ultimately, you know, with their money running out, they go to the one thing they know that will bring in the bucks, and that is by robbing a bank. So I think the whole thing is possibly leading up to that being the ultimate kind of hurrah, if you can even call it that. Obviously, like the repercussions and consequences of doing so. So it sounds like it's going to be a heavy one. Don't know when I'm realistically going to get to it, but yeah, I do like a heavy story from time to time. So this isn't all of them. I can't hold all of them, and I dropped one when I was picking them up. But this has been my book haul. Thank you guys so much for watching. Do let me know if you've read any of these before, what you thought of them, what you'd recommend for read first. As always, I'd love to know. But for now, thank you for watching once again. I shall catch you in the next one soon. Bye.